Could you please pronounce your name correctly for me?
My name is Jarle Strømodden.
And your current position, give us a little bit of a formal title for that.
I'm a director of the Vigeland Museum in Oslo. And I've been that for 17 years.
So I always love hearing a little bit about like how people got to their positions. So I know you're an art historian by sort of training, but so like how did you come to that? Like, so, you know, in childhood, where did you have some people that were creative in your family? What led you down the path to art historian in the first place?
It was quite accidental. To be
As
serious.
it often is.
Yes, it is, because my parents, they were, my father is dead, but my mother lives still, but I mean, uneducated. No, sorry about that. No, my mother was a part-time.
Sorry, Mom.
Yes, don't listen to this. No, now she was a part-time waitress, and my father was on a tugboat in the southwestern part of Norway, 2 hours from Oslo. The upbringing was fine. I mean, I was born in 1965, so in the 70s and 80s. And the good thing about growing up and choosing your education that you could choose, and if you felt that you sort of got on the wrong track at the university, for instance, well, you just changed the topic. And I really had no idea in my teens what to do. And I started off late. So in my early 20s, after my military service, which is still, at that time was mandatory in Norway.
Huh? Wait, what? Mandatory military service?
Yes, there was. Yeah. So I spent 13 months in the Navy.
Wow.
No, not wow, because that was what you did. Had no problems with that. So in the late 80s, approaching 25 years of age, I started at the university. First, history of ideas, and
wait, that's a field of study, history of ideas.
Yes, it is.
That's beautiful.
It is indeed.
I think that would be like philosophy. Maybe?
It's some philosophers would say it is a philosophy light.
I would go with that.
There was some sort of an argument between those people, but nevertheless, I very much enjoyed it. Quite challenging, and I don't know. I just started at the history of ideas, and I very much liked it in my intermediate degree. Writing on, the subject was Impressionism, European art from the 1850s to 1900, and I very much enjoyed that. And I sort of decided to go for the major degree, which I did. And I graduated in 1995.
When you say major degree, is that a master's or a PhD?
It's something in between.
Can't make it easy. Yeah. What's the in-between thing?
No, but the thing is that back in the days, you had a minor degree, an intermediate degree, and major degree. But these days, we have bachelor and master, and then the PhD.
Right.
So it would equal the master degree. So basically.
Fair enough.
And then again, it was sort of accidental. I was at the Museum of Contemporary Art in 1996. There was a position, a vacant position. I applied for it. I was, the number 2, but a friend of mine actually, he was their number 1, but he turned it down because he at that time had a nice position at the Astroförni Museum. So when he turned it down, I was the next in line, and so there you are. I didn't see anything like this coming, and I spent 5 years at the then Museum of Contemporary Art in Oslo, which is now part of the National Museum. And as a sort of newly graduated art historian, this was more or less heaven, really. And my colleagues, my seniors, they was particularly one. He was so generous. So I had 5 years, and I thought I could sort of rule the world. And I applied for a position in Tromsø as a director for the sort of a smaller art institution, a Kunstverein, as they say in German. So it was not a museum, but it was a gallery, so to speak, with changing exhibitions. It did have a very good standing at that time. And I thought that I would find out what can I possibly do outside of Oslo? Is it possible to sort of achieve something outside of Oslo? And of course it was.
I was going to say, so what was the outcome of that investigation?
Interesting, I would say.
The outcome of that investigation is you returned to Oslo.
I did. To make a long story short. But I very much enjoyed Tromsø, absolutely. But it didn't turn out to be what I was thinking and what I was sort of presented, to say the least. And we just leave it there. So I returned to Oslo, and I wasn't in between jobs because I had no idea what I was going to do. Turning 40 and felt miserable. But then again, there was accidentally my former boss. She said, "Well, there's a position at the Histefoss Museum, which is a sculpture park some 1 hour west of Oslo. It is owned by a financial tycoon called Kristen Sveaas. He has an extremely nice collection of art, both historical and contemporary art, and he runs this. This is a museum and a sculpture park with superb works by Norwegian and international artists. I'm not going to name names now. You may have heard about Histefoss Museum and their fairly recent building called The Twist, which is a gallery, a temporary gallery. Mm-hmm. And when in southern Norway, when in Oslo, go there because it's absolutely worth it. Absolutely. But then I had 3 months there, and I very much enjoyed it. Absolutely. And while I was there was a temporary position at the Vigeland Museum because the director at that time, she was suffering from cancer, so she was to be given treatment, and I applied for that position, and I was given, okay, can you just take this position for at least 6 months while she is in treatment? And I said yes, which was good. And the irony of fate maybe was that while I was there, she passed away, and I hope I'm not sounding cynical, but I mean, I knew that this position would be available, and it's
the cunning plan we all play in the arts.
And I was giving it some serious thinking because is this a museum I would like to work for? Is this a position I would like to have? And I thought, well, it's a collection, or a one-man museum is also a challenge, but there was changing exhibition, and Toril Smith, she was going to be my predecessor, but she had put up a very interesting program of contemporary artists, so I knew what I was going to work with, and my colleagues, they were so nice, and they're still my colleagues after 17 years. And so I applied, and I was given the position. So 1st January 2006, I was formally sort of employed as the director. And, well, here we are.
So give us a little bit of background on this particular museum. You said it was a one-man museum, which the honest truth is not as common worldwide these days. I mean, there was a time when there were a lot of these sort of private museums about a single artist. I say that as I'm sitting in also with the Munch Museum, but that's brand new. But they're not that common these days. There was a time period when they seemed to be, popping up, and they were very common. So, what are some of the challenges that you would have to deal with being something that's sort of based around a single artist, historical artist, even?
Now, let's start with the beginning of this, because the Vigeland Museum is not size-wise, but it's equal to the Munch Museum because both are owned by the municipality of Oslo. So we're both funded by the city of Oslo.
That's interesting.
But it's a fact.
Are you funded equally?
No.
And that's all we're going to have to say about that, right?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think we need an own podcast on that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But nevertheless, it's both Vigeland and Munch, they sort of gave their art to the city of Oslo. And in return, the city of Oslo was to give them a museum, so to speak.
Okay, wait, I want to understand this. So like right now, so let's say there's a contemporary artist working in Oslo or in Norway. Could they, when they make an estate plan that basically says, I will donate all of my work to the city of Oslo now? Like, is that still a thing?
No,
okay.
It isn't. No, but it's a good question, because we have examples of that in other cities in Norway, where the artist still alive has donated the art to the city with the idea that of course the city will say yes, and reluctantly the city say yes, because the artist is pushing and also getting some support from friends and such. But it's not as it turned out to be some disastrous is maybe a too strong a word, but it's not very successful, because it turns out that the artists and the municipalities, they seem to be on different planets when it comes to funding, and it ends in tears, so to speak, because it's not sort of funded well enough. I don't mind an artist giving things to a city or municipality, but on equal conditions, in the sense that when you accept a gift, well, take care of it. And when you propose a gift, accept a no if there is a no.
I know that. I mean, that's the thing, is like municipalities. I mean, we even have it in the United States too, where artists will want to donate to a municipality, and it's to a certain extent, unless it's like agreed upon fully and funded and because I mean, there's not just the storage and maintenance and upkeep and all this kind of stuff of this thing in perpetuity that they have to take into consideration. But it's then the we should also exhibit it, and because we own it, it should be shown to the public, not just stored away. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, which, I mean, in many ways, I wish we could, as artists, coordinate that more, but it's not very common. So like to hear that like there's this rich history of artists donating their works to a municipality, which like in America would never happen. We're such a capitalistic society, but I think it's really great, because like to a certain extent it allows for like the knowledge for the artist to say, my work, whether it's exhibited or not, at least will be maintained in perpetuity, because the municipality is not going to go out of business.
And I have other examples as well from artists that passed away maybe 40, 50 years ago. Interesting artists indeed. They have museums, but the counties, they seem to be neglecting them. So I mean, there are pros and cons. But if you go back to the Vigeland Museum, it's quite an interesting thing how it sort of came to see the light of day. Vigeland was, the agreement with the city of Oslo was that at one time he was losing his studio around sort of, let's say 1920, just sort of 1920-ish, because they were building this new library at that time, the Deichman Library, which is now the old Deichman Library, because they have opened a new Deichman Library.
Of course.
But anyway, they were really sort of, everything was demolished in that area, even the studio of Gustav Vigeland. But at that time, he was in a very sort of important position, and people were actually writing in the newspapers that the city of Oslo, they had to take care of Gustav Vigeland. You must, as an imperative, you must build him a new studio.
The good old days when journalists actually were on the side of artists and supportive.
Yeah, yes, and of course he has put a very big impact, a footprint, so to speak, which is now a museum, but also the Vigeland Park. But funnily enough, he was not that outgoing. he was not the one to approach the politicians or the decision makers. Maybe he was shrewd in the sense that he befriended people, and they would speak on his behalf.
I will be honest, that is the most cunning way to do it, because like I've talked with lots of people with like museum connections and stuff like this, and it's like basically going directly at the front door rarely works. However, going through the patrons, the supporters, the whatever, and then having them sort of fight on your behalf is exponentially more successful in outcomes generally than like knocking at the front door.
Yeah. Now, so he was. That's possibly one of the most fascinating things, and he. I think he even wrote the agreement the sketch on that, even though it was finalized with the politicians. But he says, in that agreement, he says that everything I own as of now, and everything I have made and which is in my possession at the time of my death will unconditionally be handed over to the city of Oslo. And in return, you will build me a studio, which will be a museum after my death, containing my art, but nothing but my art. So there were some conditions that may have not been accepted today. But then again, I must admit that we are not that strict these days.
But wait, so is it the current location of the museum was his studio?
It was his studio, yes.
That is an amazing studio.
It is indeed. But then again, we should bear in mind that it was supposed to be a museum after his death. So it was a purpose built. Okay. So he didn't sort of run around and use, today I will have this room. No, now I'm...
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, that is a decadent, like really, really, privileged studio.
Yeah, no, but it's... we could sort of play with that idea. But no, it was... he sort of kept himself to one or two rooms, work-wise.
But it was purpose-built with the intention of it being a museum after his death,
yes.
And until that time, he used some of it as a studio.
And also, because the in the Vigeland Park, which is situated, or the museum is situated next to the Vigeland Park, he spent his time sort of in few rooms, and when he was starting to work in the studio, that was in 1923, things were turning towards what was becoming the Vigeland Park as we know it. He had no idea, no plans for that.
Okay, but wait, give us back a little bit of geography, a little bit. Where is so you brought up the museum itself and the park. So where are they sort of within the Oslo geography?
Well, if we are now in the center of Oslo.
At the offices of Kunstsentrene i Norge, our partner in this podcast.
Right. And a stone's throw from here, slightly west, we have the Royal Palace. And further west...
I'm sorry, wait, you think that's a stone's throw? Is that what's defined as
the
Royal
Palace?
I know what you're talking about, yeah. That you call that a stone's throw?
Yes.
Okay, our stones are different. Go ahead.
A pebble, maybe.
Or our throwing arm is different. But go on.
Not long.
It's not a far... No, it's not. It's a maybe 5-10 minute walk, depending on your walking
but
speed.
Further west, we have the Vigeland Park, the Frogner Park. And that contains 200 plus sculptures by Gustav Vigeland.
Wait, that's with the palace?
No.
Okay.
Further west.
Okay, further west.
That's 20 minutes walk from the palace, further west. And on the outskirts of that park, I think it's about, how much is it? Can it be 30 acres?
It can be.
Yep. It's big.
Okay, that is pretty big.
Yep. So it's a public park, open to the public all year round, 24/7. And we do have people calling, asking, at what time is the parking closing? But it happens in Europe. I mean, there are public parks that actually are closing at one specific time.
Well, when you think it's a sculpture garden, a lot of those do close at night as well. Like, I mean, I grew up with the Hirshhorn Museum, which has a sculpture garden, but it does close in the evenings. So, yeah.
In that park, we have the monolith, which is fairly known. We have the fountain, and we have the bridge with the angry boy, which is the sort of an icon that Gustav Vigeland made. This park was conceived or built from early 1930s and finished in the late 40s, early 50s. It took some time. And it was not finished until Gustav Vigeland, I mean, he died before he could see its conclusion. Anyway, back to the museum. That's the point, and that's a starting point, because he, as he was working in his studio, and he knew that he was going to work with the park, he decided to have the plaster originals in the museum. So certain rooms were designated for the plaster originals for the fountain and the plaster originals for the monolith, and they were executed in bronze and granite respectively. And there were other rooms that had they were planned for marble sculptures, but he didn't make too many of them. So over the years we have put some sort of chronological presentation of his work. And we have 3 rooms, which is spare in the sense that we use them for changing exhibitions. So in that case, we are opposing what he actually wrote in the agreement.
I also noticed that, which I was unaware of, so he has a relationship with the Nobel Prize medal?
Yes, he does, because and that is the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes, to be specific, because there are multiple ones. Yes.
He was asked to design that. Yeah, so so every year, every 10th December, when the Peace Prize is handed over to the winner, they receive a gold medal, or gold-plated medal, which has been designed by Gustav Vigeland.
Okay, wait a second. The Nobel Peace Prize is gold-plated? That is horrible. It should be solid gold.
Okay, maybe it's solid gold. Don't quote me on this.
It should be. Well, if it's not, it should be. Nobel Prize Committee, you should do solid gold. That's ridiculous that you would plate
Don't ruin my good relationship. No, but one thing, what I like, I mean, speaking of the Nobel Peace Prize, as a director of the Vigeland Museum, I received an invitation to the ceremony in the city hall.
Lovely.
So, I know.
Yeah.
I just sit there for about 2 hours, but I very much enjoyed it. So every 10th December, I know what to do as long as I'm the director of the Vigeland Museum.
So he designed it originally, I saw in 1901, I believe. And so it's still the exact same design from then to today, still his design.
Yes,
so
it is.
I would say that's probably the thing he would be recognized the most for.
But most people don't.
I know.
No,
but like I'm doing a little research and I'm just like, oh yeah, well, I know, because I know what the Peace Prize looked like. I just was unaware that he had designed it.
No, so he was quite lucky at some time. But then again, he was. I said maybe he was not that outgoing, but he certainly knew who to approach.
Well, he knew Nobel.
And he did have some important friends in Sweden, some people with extreme wealth, and then they were supportive towards him. Ernst Thiel, a Swede, possibly the richest man in Europe at the sort of early 1900s. He acquired works by Edvard Munch, Gustav Vigeland, and a lot of Swedish artists. And he was sort of hanging around with the Wallenbergs and the Bonniers, sort of the really wealthy people, and they are still instrumental within the Swedish economy. So Ernst Thiel, he was very important to Gustav Vigeland. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I always wonder about, like, okay, so you're a museum that exhibits sculptures primarily. I mean, I know there's, photographs, sketches, other things that are probably involved in that as well. But beyond that, so you also then have a garden. What about the maintenance, the technical aspects of like upkeeping? Because like when you have things that are outdoors, have you ever had any problems with vandalism or damage through just environmental impacts? things like this?
Yes. Funny you should ask.
Is it funny?
No, not really. No, but
let's hope it's not funny.
No, it's not, but it's interesting. And speaking about the environmental thing, not that much now, but back in the 80s.
Acid rain.
Yes,
yeah.
That made a serious impact on both the granite, the wrought iron, and the bronze. But for some strange reason, it has changed. So that's not. We're not concerned that much anymore.
It's fun. I remember these conversations. I remember acid rain is going to destroy blah 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 blah, and then like over the years, I'm like, we just don't talk about acid. What happened to acid rain?
I think we became more concerned in the sense that I'm not saying that the air is cleaner, but I think the industry became more concerned.
We're less acidically polluting.
Maybe. I think we have. I think we have taken some action on that. Small steps maybe, but I know from my conservators, they said that in the 80s, huge problem, not so much anymore.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it is. It is. But of course, the vandalism, it happens occasionally, and not that much we can do about it. We just have to, whenever there is some writing on the sculptures, we know how to take it away.
Is it just power washing or anything like?
Basically, yeah. you use some other solutions as well, and as long as it's a marker, it's paint, not that much of a problem. It's just annoying. Yeah.
Just as a horrible thing, like nobody has tried to like chisel their name in or anything like that.
No. So don't do this at home.
Good. Don't do it ever, anywhere.
No, but
except in a tree or on a park bench, like that's kind of cute and fun. I'd have no problem with that, but not a piece of sculpture.
But the angry boy, as I said, the icon of the park. On a good day, I would say this is the Mona Lisa of the park, because this angry boy is the one thing that everyone wants to see. But that one, for some strange reason, is extremely popular and very popular among, I would say, burglars. And in the sense that it has been sort of once, and it disappeared totally, and it was away for a number of days. And I think twice during my time as director, twice it has been attempted. So they are using a saw to. So that is vandalism.
Oh, that's definitely vandalism.
Time.
Yeah.
It is.
But wait. It was. It went missing and then just sort of showed up again, or police were involved.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't have the details about how it reappeared. But they did find it. Not as complex as the Scream.
Which was a great story.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now we're not there, but it did disappear, absolutely. So but it has been strengthened. So it's we don't. There are vandalism every now and then, but it's not that easy as it was. And then again, what can you possibly do with it other than?
Well, I mean, the thing is because you have chosen, or I guess the municipality has chosen to allow it to be in a place that's open 24 hours a day, like it's kind of inevitable that something is going to be vandalized. I mean, the fact that it's the iconic piece, not great surprise, but something is going to be vandalized. I mean, God, you go into any park anywhere in the world, there's just some vandalism somewhere.
I know. So, but knock on wood, we have been fairly lucky, even though there has been vandalism, but few and far between, so to speak.
Well, with the indoors though, so like because I'm sure you have plaster molds and other kinds of things like that. What are some of the environmental things? Because like I've been to many museums where they like will limit the amount of people in a room because simply the moisture coming out of their breath will potentially affect things. I've been into historical caves and stuff like this, same types of issues, kind of things. So is there some sort of considerations that you all have to put into the amount of people? Like on a rainy day, you can allow less people in because they're also wet as well, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely, it's we we don't have that high number of visitors, so it doesn't cause a problem.
I make a large assumption. I assume everybody is well visited.
We are working on it, but that is actually a very good point. The museum, well, as it was a museum, it was built 100 years ago, so it's not exactly up to date when it comes to internal the climate control. So we are very well aware of this relative humidity indoors. We are aware of the fact that when on a rainy day people appear, well, umbrellas, obviously, raincoats, please leave it off, because the plaster will be affected by that. And I know you can see on some of the plaster originals, because they inside them there are iron rods, as a skeleton,
and they rust.
They do, because on some occasion Vigeland bought these iron rods of slightly poor quality.
Shocking. An artist using poor quality materials on the inside?
I know, it's strange, but it's a fact.
Never heard of such a thing.
No, but it's the first time for everything, No, but it's so you can actually see spots on this white plaster. And this is also interesting in the sense that these materials, they are alive. They react to each other, and they react to the surroundings.
Well, okay, so from a conservator or conservatory perspective on that, is that something that you would somehow try to mitigate and remove these sort of rusty marks?
No,
on them?
it's not that. They are, maybe I should say, birthmarks, so to speak. So it's not that many, and it's not that huge. So it's Yet. Well, let me put it this way. No, not yet. But they evolve in a tectonic way. So we can live with it.
Yeah, I mean, within your tenure, it probably will not become horrible. But I mean, for the future, I mean, it could, 50, 60 years from now, it could become quite prominent.
Absolutely, but let's hope that within that time, the climate control in the museum would improve.
We should hope that they would get updated climate control within that time. Yes, agreed. Yes. But now, just to be clear, so like sort of funded kind of things, like, so the building is owned by the municipality. So basically, you're hoping that the municipality will find the funding to do that, or I guess private partnership that could somehow support that as well. Is that something? Sort of side note, like, because you're run by the municipality, are you allowed to even have sort of sponsor partners, whatever kind of thing? Is that because some places that's inappropriate? I don't know here.
No, we are absolutely allowed to. If you just look at the Munch Museum, they are doing it big time. They are. I mean, but then again, I would say that Munch Museum is possibly with a new building with Munch as a worldwide name or brand, even they are much more attractive. They are, and of course, the Vigeland Museum is a sculpture museum. You don't sort of carry around sculptures that easily. You just put it under your arm, and it's granite sculptures. They weigh about 5 tons.
Oh yeah.
No, but we are allowed to have sort of funds like that, sponsors. But if we go back to the sort of the climate control internal, so that would be the responsibility of the municipality, the agency that would sort of own the building. So that would be. I said if if we should get any funding sponsors, it would be to for exhibitions, to develop the museum, the venue as a site for art, or presenting art, that is.
Which is a perfect segue to the next question I had, which was, while the museum was founded on the nature of a single artist, there are, I'm assuming, opportunities for contemporary sort of interpretations or expansions on the ideas of that artist, or just random great contemporary art being exhibited. So what kind of sort of programs do you have that sort of expand beyond the individual artist that it's based on?
During my time, we have been concentrating on presenting arts within the three-dimensional field: sculpture, installation, video-based art to a certain extent. So we, as a sculpture museum, we have not been dealing with photography, graphics, or painting, because there are other venues in Oslo that can take care of that.
I'm a photographer, by the way. Just
yeah, so
FYI.
no offense.
No, okay.
Well, there are exceptions. So.
No, I sort of actually do painting, three-dimensional work at this point, but still photography-based. I consider myself a photography-based artist, not a photographer.
Yeah. No, but then again, if you ask people, they would say, but they're not that strict, and we are not. But as a starting point, we will focus on the three-dimensional art, because there aren't. I mean, we don't have any other venues dealing with that. So I think we are. We're the only one in that sense, and I think we're doing quite well. And I should also say that we not necessarily contemporary art. We would very much like to present at least contemporaries of Gustav Vigeland, because the challenge with a one-man museum, and I say one-man because there is usually a man.
Heterosexual white man.
Yes.
To be clear.
Yeah. But then again, when you have a one-man museum, you don't see how great or how interesting he was in his lifetime. So because Gustav Vigeland, he was very much en vogue with what was going on in Europe.
Well, it's not just that, like, these kinds of museums, it's not just about even their relationship to their contemporaries, but it's also I find interesting to see how the impacts of their life and career then have now influenced newer generations. And so like that sort of lineage is also sort of a compelling way for me anyways.
Yeah. No. Well, I shouldn't say this, but I really have to, because if we compare Gustav Vigeland to Edvard Munch, and they were contemporaries, and they,
which, to be honest, it's sad that you have to continually do that, because there is such a prominent museum with a huge public relations budget, and so like everybody knows about them, and of course it's the Scream, which everybody knows about. Everybody had the poster in college in their dorm, but it's sort of sad that you have to continue to do that comparison instead of being able to just say, Edvard Munch was his thing and your artist was your thing. But because you're in the same city, there seems to be like a continual comparison, basically, not just your museum, but like Munch versus everybody else.
Well, yes, but then again, I use it, I think, in a positive sense, because, as I said, they were contemporaries. They were also acquaintances, and they didn't sort of compete. Not that much. So I would say that it's just that I'm every now and then using it. But maybe I should go back to what you originally asked about, what we have. And yes, we do have artists of Gustav Vigeland's own time, because it is important to show what Gustav Vigeland was part of. But when we do, say, contemporary artists, I'm not asking he or she to do something in the vein of Gustav Vigeland. So, I mean, which
would be pretty rare, quite honestly.
But I know that. Do you want? I mean, I don't want the artist. I don't want the artist to do something that is sort of going in a dialogue with Gustav Vigeland. Do what you are good at, and if there is some sort of a connection appearing, superb. Because what I think, if you go in there and say, now I shall sort of make myself equal to or whatever, it's like being provocative. Now I just want to be provocative, and you don't succeed. it falls flat to the ground, basically, or more often than not. If you do something, I mean, the provocative thing should be some sort of a surprise, I think. But the thing is that one should bear in mind when I was going to talk about Edvard Munch was that he has a bigger impact on contemporary artists within the field of painting. And he was actually one of the few artists sort of coining the term expressionism. So there's no denying that. Gustav Vigeland was in a more classical vein, and he was not in the forefront. Rodin was there. But believe you me, Gustav Vigeland was one of the best sculptors in Europe, at least, say, from 1900s to 1915. Definitely. I mean, he was a very sought-after artist among the curators of that time. He was invited to a number of exhibitions in Europe. Even there was one time in Vienna, I believe it was in 1904. At that time, there were the leading artists of Austria at that time, Gustav Klimt, just to mention one, and Rodin. They were there. And Gustav Vigeland was the only Norwegian artist participating. So we did have a position, really. So it's not that, but I mean, working within a classical field of sculpture, you're not that sort of. It's a slow pace, so you have to bear that in mind. And also, not too many Norwegian artists are working within the field of classical sculpture these days. So that's so he doesn't put that much of an impact. But we have had exhibitions by contemporary artists dealing with modernism, and they some of them do find Vigeland interesting in different ways. So their way of looking at Vigeland, their approach to it, that's how he can be some sort of an inspirational source, but not as if you look at the sculpture as such.
Well, like when I'm thinking about this, okay, so this is a sculpture place. So these things are large, they are heavy, they are difficult. So I'm assuming that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there's sort of what I would call like a permanent exhibition that doesn't really change very often, simply because of the logistics of doing that. And then there's these contemporary exhibitions. How are they sort of curated? So like, do you all have curators on staff that do this? Do you get freelancers? And then sort of what's the dialogue or even the conversations that go on behind the scenes of like how to curate an exhibition? Again, like, and I hate to say it, to keep bringing this up, but like in a museum that's sort of designed about one person.
Well, we have 3 rooms basically. For changing exhibitions. It's me and a colleague of mine. We are art historians. So we, together with a third colleague, art historian as well, but dealing mostly with education and social media. But we discuss who would we like to work with. I mean, artists alive. Basically, not necessarily Norwegians, but based in Norwegian. Based in Norway.
So that's a criteria.
Not necessarily, but it's a matter of sort of resources, financial resources.
Sure, yeah.
Practicality.
You can't ship stuff from Namibia.
No, in that case, we need funding.
Yeah.
But no, so we don't. It's not that, but also we have 3 exhibitions a year, so we have to be sort of selective. But we discuss who do we find interesting. And sort of we end up with a list, we approach, and he or she says yes. And after that, it's basically up to the artist what to do. And we say, you can't do this and you can't do that. I mean, you can't, there's no nails in the wall, ceiling, floor.
Right. So, because you said it was a listed building.
Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't understand that, that's sort of a UK term, a historical building.
So we can't make any changes. And the rooms are, I mean, what you see is what you get. And some artists find it annoying, irritating, but I would say the best artists, the most interesting artists, they find it challenging in the most positive way. And basically, that's the artists we love to work with.
Sure. Limitations enforce creativity.
Yes, absolutely. And some of them will work in a small scale, and some of them will think big, and it shows. We have the two last exhibitions. They went big, and they were amazing, absolutely. And there's one of my first exhibitions that was back in 2006. So I didn't plan that one, but it's still possibly the best exhibition I have seen in that museum, because it was in one of the rooms. It is some 10 by 20 meters. So
it's a pretty big room.
200 square meters, floor to ceiling 9 meters. So
that's a really big room.
Yes, it is.
I'm assuming then probably some natural light as well.
It's a skylit room.
Yeah.
And she had made some stoneworks for Triennale in Yokohama, Japan, back in 2001. So this was 5 years later. They were black, polished. They were maybe 3 meters in the length, but only 10-15 centimeters high. So they were lying on the floor like there were some sort of like oil. There they were in that room, and in the next room you could see the plaster original of the fountain by Gustav Vigeland. So you had the black polished horizontal thing in that room with the white vertical Gustav Vigeland. So the horizontal female made work with the horizontal white male work. You do the math. Now it was so. I mean, I know we're talking about the horizontal, the vertical, the female, the male.
It's iconic. I mean,
the thing is,
it's an archetype.
But still, her work was not made for this room, and it all fell into place. Because I mean, as an art historian, you know sort of how to see. You have your references and preferences. But so what I'm saying is not necessarily true. This is not a description of life as such, but this is a way of seeing. And as I said, it still is possibly the best exhibition. It's an example of what you can achieve in that room. And I think that whenever an artist is asked to exhibit, and he or she, whatever they come up with, when they think less about Gustav Vigeland, it will become better.
When you bring that up, the thing that I wonder about, do you commission works, or do you choose existing works to put into this space?
That could be it's a mix. So there was one video artist I worked with up in Tromsø some 20 years ago, and I invited her to come back to when I was at the Gustav Vigeland Museum, and of course she wanted to show new works. So I just had one condition, in the sense that do whatever you like, but this work, which was no point in naming it, but that work I wanted. I mean, other than that, do your thing. So I may be some sort of I have some obsessions every now and then when it comes to artists, but other than that, I have faith in the artists, because I have sort of followed them. I know what they're capable of doing, and I trust them. We trust them. We do. And I think trust is an important word, because the colleague of mine, she was responsible for one of the big things, and she's much more sort of hands-on than I am. She is, but then again,
it's a very polite way of saying that.
Yeah. No, but the artist that she was working with was it was a dream team. She was so surprised because she didn't have to send reminders to the artist. he was, I mean, before she had thought about it, he was there. So, I mean, that was a match made in heaven, because both of them were so dedicated to this, and they were doing it on time, and it was so sort of, they were so specific about things. It turned out perfectly well. But then again, I think we received proposals, and can it be done? Not too heavy, not too demanding. We don't have to sort of remove doors and windows and stuff like that. So, no, trust is an important word.
Right. Okay, wait, but just to be clear, you do accept proposals. So it's not all sort of in-house curators from their own mind and their own relationships. They decide on what things. There is the opportunity for artists to say, oh my gosh, I have this great work that has some relationship to either the space or the other works there and stuff like this. And so there can be proposals submitted.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
But then again, as I said, we have 3 exhibitions a year. So we don't, try to be polite in the sense that we don't encourage artists to send proposals. But whenever, I am approached by artists, and the artist says, I have a very good idea for you. So I will lend them my ear. And it does happen. Absolutely.
I will lend my ear and then politely say no.
Well, it's like, yes,
but it's just true. I mean, our artists should understand, don't do that. Like, I mean, it's unprofessional. It's inappropriate for an artist to literally just walk up to a museum or a gallery director and be like, hi, here's my work. Like, totally unprofessional. Don't do it. Because you're not going to enjoy that experience generally most of the time. And nothing personal. I don't know any of your experiences, but it's just not going to go well. Send an email, say, hey, do you have time? Can we meet? Be professional about it. Don't just be like, hey, I have this great idea for your museum. Never going to work.
Oh, in that case, I was slightly, I was not precise. I'm not being sort of approached in the lobby or on the street, but I do receive emails from artists every now and then. But then again, there may be artists I know. We know each other. And
I was picturing you being stopped on the street.
Okay, it happens. Now, but the thing is, you should never say no, because it may be a very good idea but every now and then things happens that I was not aware of, and that's a good thing. It's like sitting in a jury and you receive applications, and all of a sudden there's one thing I didn't see that come, and it's brilliant.
Well, the arts world is one of those places, like, everybody's evolving, everybody's changing, everybody's growing, hopefully, I should say, to be clear. And so like, no is not always the best thing to be ever said, but it's more of a not now or not yet, because a lot of the creative processes and a lot of proposals they're just not to the point to be ready for whatever purpose yet. So like the idea of not yet or not now, I feel like is a little bit better than no.
I agree with you, because I also think that on a more personal note, I am a sort of a slow learner, developer. I need things to sort of grow on me, and when they do, it's good. And it's like, I very much like quoting, I think it was Ed Ruscha, that had a very precise description of the difference between bad art and good art. And bad art was, wow. What? Good art is, what? Wow.
I like it.
And I like Ed Ruscha.
I love Ed Ruscha. Yeah, I went to San Francisco Art Institute, so like he had a lot of influence in that region and stuff. Like, I still to this day love his 76 gas stations. Like, I mean, to imagine you could have bought that on the street for $1 back when he originally created it, and now, I mean, now it's an iconic, historic piece. It's like, ugh. But I'm a big fan of the sort of make something on the cheap and sort of a Warholian sort of like make 1,000 things and sell it for $1 than make things and sell one piece for $1,000. Like I'm very much more of the egalitarian sort of, I want everybody to enjoy it versus just elite people. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But I want to finish on something sort of slightly fun, because we talked a little bit about this before we started the recording. I love a gift shop. So do you all have any sort of a museum store?
We do. You would be surprised by the size and the...
Surprised in a big way or a small way?
In a small way.
Okay.
So this small shop will give you a big surprise. And we have a sort of limited selection of souvenirs. But still, they are souvenirs. Now, then again, it has something to do with the museum as such, because the museum was built 100 years ago. They didn't plan for a museum shop, strangely enough. Yes,
that's so weird. They didn't know about gift shops 100 years ago?
No. Can you imagine?
No. Well, now, no. I mean, it's the primary thing when you enter a museum these days, or when you exit, depending on the museum. But it's where they really make their money now.
Oh yes, but I do love a good museum shop, and basically I would I would buy postcards, but then again I have a stepdaughter, and every now and then we travel abroad, and she's also very fond of the shops, and she loves socks. So whenever I will have to buy some socks, and I do occasionally buy socks myself. So I would recommend the Museo Reina Sofia in Madrid, or the Nationalmuseet in Stockholm. But I mean, talking about Scandinavia, and this goes out to all you out there. The Louisiana Museum of Modern Art, north of Copenhagen. That is a gift shop.
And sadly, I'm not going there.
But not yet.
Well, but I could order online, I would assume. But yeah.
You can even buy bicycles there.
What?
Yes. I kid you not.
I don't need a bicycle, but that's still an
But you can buy it.
Yeah, I know, but it's an interesting opportunity. All right. Any topics that you want to bring up or talk about that I haven't brought up?
I don't think so. I mean, I very much enjoy this conversation.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before you go, we would like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the conversation. We also would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, families, coworkers, and even studio mates. Anyone with an interest in the arts and creative industries. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community, both today and in the future, is at the core mission of this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by CushAudio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.